You planned for retirement. You saved. You sacrificed. You did everything right. But nobody told you that retiring alone hits differently. Not emotionally, though that's real too. I'm talking about your money, your benefits, your taxes, your healthcare. Because the moment you file as a single retiree, the government sees you through a completely different lens, and almost none of it works in your favor. Here's something that stops most people cold when they first hear it. A married couple can bring home nearly twice the income of a single retiree before they start losing benefits, paying higher taxes, or getting hit with Medicare surcharges. But you, as a single person, you hit those same penalty thresholds at half the income. Same rules, half the protection. That's not a coincidence. That's the system, and it was never designed with you in mind. And right now, in 2025, with Social Security rules shifting, Medicare costs climbing, and new tax brackets quietly squeezing retirees harder than ever, retiring single has become one of the most financially vulnerable positions a person can be in. Not because you did anything wrong, but because the rules change the moment you're on your own. If you are single, widowed, divorced, or even thinking about retiring alone in the next few years, what you're about to hear could be the most important financial information you watch all year. Because the people who get hurt the most aren't the ones who didn't save. They're the ones who did save, but didn't know the rules had changed on them. Don't go anywhere. This is where it starts. Immediate risk. Let's talk about who this really affects. Because if you're watching this, there's a good chance you already know someone in this situation, or you are that person. Maybe you spent decades building a life with a partner, and now, through loss or divorce or simply the way life unfolded, you're heading into retirement on your own. Or maybe you've always been independent, never married, and you've built everything yourself from the ground up. Either way, the financial reality of retiring single is something most people are completely unprepared for. Here's who is most at risk right now. If you are a woman over 60, and statistically the majority of single retirees are women, you are facing a compounded challenge. Women already retire with less saved on average due to years of caregiving, wage gaps, and career interruptions. Add single status on top of that, and the margin for error becomes razor thin. But men aren't immune either. Widowers and divorced men over 65 are among the fastest growing groups of financially struggling retirees in the country. Many of them relied on a spouse to manage household finances or benefits coordination, and suddenly, alone, they're navigating systems they never had to deal with before. And here's the risk nobody warns you about clearly enough. When you retire single, every financial mistake lands entirely on you. There is no backup income. There is no second Social Security check arriving on the third Wednesday of the month. There is no spouse's pension to lean on if your investments dip. There is no one to split the Medicare premium with. Every bill, every tax, every unexpected medical cost, it all falls on one set of shoulders. That's not meant to frighten you. That's meant to prepare you. Because the singles who retire comfortably aren't the ones with the most money. They're the ones who understood the risks early and made moves before it was too late. And the window to make those moves, right now, is narrower than most people realize. To understand why retiring single has become so much more complicated right now, you need to understand a little bit of the backstory. Because this isn't just about personal finances. This is about a system that was built decades ago and was never truly updated to reflect the way millions of Americans actually live today. When Social Security was first designed back in the 1930s, the assumed household was simple: a husband who worked, a wife who stayed home, one income, two people, and a retirement benefit structure built entirely around that model. Fast forward to today, and nearly a third of all Americans over 65 are living alone. The demographics have completely changed, but many of the rules, they haven't kept up. Here's where things stand right now in 2025. Social Security's full retirement age has been gradually rising. For anyone born in 1960 or later, and that includes millions of people approaching retirement right now, the full retirement age is 67. That means if you claim early at 62, you could be locking in a permanently reduced benefit of up to 30% less than what you'd receive if you waited. For a married couple, One spouse's reduced benefit can sometimes be offset by the other's stronger claim. For a single retiree, there is no offset. What you claim is what you get for the rest of your life. Then there's Medicare. In recent years, Medicare Part B premiums have continued to rise, and there is a surcharge system built into Medicare called IRMA-A, the Income-Related Monthly Adjustment Amount. It sounds technical, but what it means is simple. If your income crosses certain thresholds, you pay significantly more for Medicare every single month. And here's the critical part that affects single retirees directly. Those income thresholds for single filers are set at exactly half the level of married couples. A married couple can earn up to $206,000 before hitting the first IRMA surcharge. A single person hits that same surcharge at just $103,000. Same penalty. Half the runway. The IRS tax brackets work in a similar way. The standard deduction for a single filer in retirement is thousands of dollars less than what a married couple receives. That means more of your retirement income is exposed to taxes. Your Social Security, your IRA withdrawals, your investment income, all of it taxed at a higher effective rate simply because you are filing a loan. These aren't loopholes or oversights. They are structural features of a system that has always quietly penalized single Americans. And right now, with costs rising and benefits under pressure, those penalties are hitting harder than ever before. Now, here's where it gets really important, because everything I just described, the tax brackets, the Medicare surcharges, the Social Security timing, most people have at least a vague awareness of those things. But what most people don't realize is that there is a deeper, quieter problem sitting underneath all of it. And it catches single retirees completely off guard, usually at the worst possible moment. It's called the singles tax. Not an official government term, but financial planners who work with retirees use it informally to describe something very real. The idea is this: almost every major cost in retirement is structured around the assumption that two people are sharing it. Housing, utilities, insurance, travel, food. When two people live together, they split those costs. When you live alone, you pay all of them. But your income, your Social Security, your savings, your pension doesn't automatically double to compensate. You are paying couple-sized bills on a single-person income. And that gap over a retirement that could last 20 or 30 years adds up to a staggering amount of money. Here's the part nobody is talking about loudly enough. The average single retiree needs roughly 70 to 80% of what a couple needs to maintain the same standard of living. But they only have 50% of the income. Do the math on that. You are expected to cover nearly the same expenses with half the financial resources. That is not a small gap. That is a structural crisis hiding inside what looks like a comfortable retirement plan. And it goes even further than monthly expenses. Think about what happens when something goes wrong. A married retiree faces a health crisis. They have a partner to help manage care, coordinate appointments, navigate insurance paperwork, and in many cases, continue bringing in income or benefits while the other recovers. A single retiree faces that same health crisis completely alone. And here's the financial reality of that. Single people are statistically more likely to enter nursing home care earlier, stay longer, and exhaust their savings faster. Not because they are less healthy, but because there is no built-in support system absorbing the shock. What most people don't realize is that long-term care costs are one of the single greatest threats to a solo retirement. And yet fewer than 1 in 5 Americans over 60 has any long-term care plan in place at all. The assumption, often unconscious, is that a spouse or partner will help. When you are retiring alone, that assumption is gone. And the cost of replacing that informal care with professional care is extraordinary. In many parts of the United States, a single year in assisted living now costs between $50,000 and $80,000. A private room in a nursing facility can run well over $100,000 annually. That money has to come from somewhere, and if you haven't planned for it specifically as a single person, it comes from everything you spent a lifetime building. So let's slow down for a moment and break all of this down in plain, simple terms, because I want to make sure everything we've covered so far is crystal clear. And I want you to walk away from this part of the video understanding exactly what you are dealing with and why it matters so much right now. Let's start with Social Security, because this is the foundation of most retirement incomes in America, and the decisions you make here will follow you for the rest of your life. When you retire single, you have one Social Security benefit, just yours. And the age at which you claim that benefit is one of the most important financial decisions you will ever make. If you claim at 62, the earliest possible age, your monthly check is permanently reduced. We're not talking about a temporary cut. We are talking about a reduction that stays with you every single month for every year you live. For some people, that reduction is 25 to 30% less than what they would have received by waiting until full retirement age. Now, for a married couple, this calculation has some flexibility. If one spouse claims early and the other waits, they can sometimes balance things out. One lower check comes in while the higher earner delays, letting that benefit grow. When you are single, that strategy doesn't exist. You have one check, one decision, and if you get it wrong, there is no second income to soften the impact. Here is the simple rule that most financial advisors will tell single retirees. If you are in reasonably good health and you can afford to wait. Every year you delay claiming Social Security past your full retirement age, your benefit grows by approximately 8%. That is guaranteed growth. No stock market risk, no uncertainty, just a larger check every month for the rest of your life. If you live into your late 70s or 80s, which many people do, waiting to claim can mean tens of thousands of dollars more in lifetime income. Now, let's talk about taxes, because this is where single retirees often get the biggest surprise. Many people assume that once they retire and stop working, their tax burden goes down significantly, and for some people it does. But for single retirees with modest savings, the reality is often very different. Here's why. Up to 85% of your Social Security benefit can be taxed by the federal government, depending on your total income. And the income thresholds that trigger that taxation are set very low for single filers. We're talking about combined income as low as $25,000 triggering partial taxation of your Social Security. That threshold has not been meaningfully adjusted for inflation in decades, which means more and more retirees are getting pulled into it every single year. Add to that your IRA withdrawals. If you saved diligently in a traditional IRA or a 401k throughout your working years, and most responsible savers did, every dollar you pull out in retirement is taxed as ordinary income. For a single retiree, those withdrawals can push you into a higher bracket faster than you expect. And once you hit 73, the IRS requires you to start taking money out whether you need it or not. These are called required minimum distributions, RMDs. You don't get to choose. The government sets the schedule, and if your RMDs push your income above certain thresholds, suddenly your Medicare costs go up too, because of those surcharges we talked about earlier. It's a chain reaction. Higher withdrawals lead to higher taxable income. Higher taxable income leads to higher Medicare premiums. Higher Medicare premiums reduce your monthly cash flow. And as a single retiree, there is no second income in the household absorbing any part of that pressure. The good news, and there absolutely is good news, is that all of these things are manageable when you understand them and plan around them. A strategy called Roth conversion, for example, involves moving money from a traditional IRA into a Roth IRA during your early retirement years, before RMDs kick in. You pay the taxes now at today's rate so that your future withdrawals are tax-free. For single retirees, this strategy can be genuinely life-changing, reducing lifetime tax burden significantly and giving you more control over your income in later years. The point is this: retiring single is not a disadvantage you have to simply accept. It is a set of specific challenges that require specific solutions. And the earlier you understand exactly what those challenges are, the better positioned you are to face them on your terms. Let's talk honestly about what happens when none of this gets addressed. Because I think it's important not to scare you, but to show you exactly what is at stake when single retirees go into this chapter of life without a clear plan. The most common consequence is something financial planners call the slow drain. It doesn't happen all at once. There's no single catastrophic moment where everything falls apart. Instead, it happens gradually. Month by month, year by year, the gap between what's coming in and what's going out quietly widens. The Medicare premiums inch up. The tax bill at the end of the year is a little higher than expected. The heating bill, the car repair, the prescription cost, all of it lands on one person, one account, one income stream. And slowly, steadily, the savings that were supposed to last 25 years start running thin at year 14 or 15. For single retirees, the risk of outliving your money is not a distant, abstract possibility. It is a documented, statistically significant reality. Women in particular face this risk acutely because women on average live longer than men, retire with less saved, and are far more likely to spend their final years alone. A woman retiring at 65 today has a very real chance of living into her late 80s or even her 90s. That is potentially 25 years of expenses, healthcare costs, and inflation, all on a fixed income with no partner sharing the load. And here's the consequence that hits hardest of all. When the money runs low, the options get painful. Adult children are pulled into financial decisions they weren't prepared for. Independence, the thing most seniors value above almost everything else, starts to erode. Choices about where to live, how to receive care, and how to spend your final years get taken out of your hands. Not because you didn't work hard enough, but because the planning wasn't there when it needed to be. The cruelest part is that most of this is preventable. Not all of it. Life is unpredictable. But the structural financial vulnerabilities that single retirees face, those can be planned around. Those can be softened, managed, and in many cases, completely neutralized if you act before the damage is done. The window to act is right now, not next year, not when you actually retire. Now. All right, let's talk about what you can actually do, because everything we've covered up to this point only matters if it leads you somewhere useful. So here are the clear, practical steps that every single retiree or anyone approaching retirement alone should be taking right now. The first step is to get a complete picture of your Social Security options before you make any claiming decision. Don't guess. Don't go by what your neighbor did or what you heard at the dinner table. Go to the Social Security Administration's official website, ssa.gov, and create your personal account if you haven't already. Inside that account, you can see your full earnings history and get an estimate of your benefit at different claiming ages. Look at the difference between claiming at 62 at your full retirement age and at 70. For a single retiree, that comparison is one of the most important financial exercises you will ever do. Print it out, study it, and if the numbers are confusing, take them to a financial advisor who specializes in retirement income. One good decision here can mean hundreds of dollars more every single month for the rest of your life. The second step is to find out exactly where you stand with Medicare and whether IRMA surcharges could affect you. If your income in retirement is going to be anywhere near $103,000 as a single filer, you need to know that now, not when the bill arrives. Talk to a Medicare counselor or a financial planner about strategies to manage your taxable income in the years leading up to and during retirement. This is not complicated once someone walks you through it, but it requires advanced planning. You cannot fix an IRMA surcharge after the fact. The third step, and this one is urgent, is to start thinking seriously about long-term care. I know it's uncomfortable. Nobody wants to imagine needing help with basic daily activities. But as a single retiree, you do not have the built-in safety net that a spouse provides. Look into long-term care insurance options while you are still healthy enough to qualify and young enough to get reasonable premiums. If traditional long-term care insurance feels out of reach, ask about hybrid policies that combine life insurance with long-term care benefits. There are more options available today than most people realize. The fourth step is to consider a Roth conversion strategy if you have money sitting in a traditional IRA or 401k. Talk to a tax professional about whether converting some of that money now, while your income may be lower in early retirement, makes sense for your situation. For many single retirees, this one move can save a significant amount in lifetime taxes and give you far more flexibility later. And the fifth step is simply this: build your team. As a single retiree, you are the sole decision maker. That means you need good people around you, a fee-only financial advisor, a tax professional who understands retirement income, an elder law attorney who can review your estate documents. You don't need to spend a fortune, But you do need trusted voices in your corner because the decisions ahead are too important to navigate entirely alone. You have worked too hard and come too far to leave any of this to chance. Here's what I want you to keep in mind as you move forward. Everything we talked about today, the Social Security timing, the Medicare surcharges, the tax traps, the long-term care gap, this is just the beginning of what single retirees need to understand right now. Because here's what's coming next. There are proposals currently being discussed in Washington that could directly affect Social Security benefit calculations, cost of living adjustments, and Medicare eligibility ages. Some of those changes, if they happen, will hit single retirees harder than anyone else, and most people won't see it coming until it's already done. We're going to be covering all of that in upcoming videos, breaking it down simply, clearly, and in a way that actually helps you make better decisions for your own life. So if you are not subscribed yet, now is the time. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming. And if today's video helped you see something you hadn't considered before, if it opened your eyes to even one risk you weren't aware of, do one thing for me. Share it with someone you care about who is approaching retirement alone. A friend, a sibling, a neighbor. Because the people who need this information most are often the ones who aren't looking for it yet. You deserve a retirement that is secure, independent, and on your own terms. The first step is knowing exactly what you are walking into. We'll see you in the next one.